Well, Dolphin fans, it's a Sunday without football for you. There are going to be teams playing in the first round of the playoffs, the wild card, but the Miami Dolphins are not in it. And we will continue our post-mortem look at this team and look at the comings and goings of the Miami Dolphins. Joining me is Isaiah Smalls, Miami Dolphins beat writer for the Miami Herald. I am Omar Kelly.
Promotion.
Yeah, Miami Dolphins comment. Oh, you trust me? You don't want that pressure. Not now. So Isaiah, I never got a chance to wrap up the press conference with you because I did the post-mortem autopsy with Barry. What did you take away? What was your top takeaways from the sit down with Chris Grier and Mike McDaniel earlier this week?
Obviously, the Tyreek stuff, right? Which I know we're going to get into a little bit later. The amicable meeting with the star player, that was a big takeaway. Chris Grier admitting that he was wrong about the offensive line, that was a huge takeaway for me.
I don't know if he said he was wrong. He said once we lost Austin Jackson, we started bleeding out.
Okay, he did. You're right. But he said. But to me, the line that stands out the most is we need to invest in the offensive line, like that, because the investment last year was somewhat lackluster. Like it was like, let's bring in Aaron Brewer and like we'll be all right, guys. Like, and it's just like, nah, like that's not, obviously, from day one we took issue with that. So him just somewhat admitting like he was wrong. All right, cool. That was a big takeaway. And then really just the reaffirming the belief in Tua. I think that was another big takeaway because I think, his head has been on the chopping block for many Dolphins fans for years, right? And just, him kind of reaffirming that belief was very eye-opening to me, considering, just the way the season ended and just, this is the least amount of games he's played since his rookie year. Like, so I was kind of, and that was a question I asked, what gives you faith that he can lead you guys to a Super Bowl, right? So those are the three main takeaways for me.
Yeah. In regards to Tua, I don't really know what else he was going to say. I did find it quite interesting that he'll say he did excuse the fact that they didn't address the backup quarterback situation by saying they were the runner-ups for some people. I'm racking my brain and trying to figure out what exactly could he be talking about, because he didn't want to mess up compensatory picks by offering too high of a salary. Mm-hmm. Truth of the matter is they had $4 million they could have saved by releasing what was that quarterback's name? Mike White. So that $4 million cancels out. That $4 million, you add another 2, you get it to 6. I don't know what Andy Dalton's making. Not that Andy Dalton would have been the answer. But we know that there was a level of interest in Andy Dalton. I think there was also a level of interest in Gardner Minshew. But in terms of them being bidders, I really don't know how serious they were about that.
Just real quick, Andy Dalton 2-year, $10 million contract.
2-year, $10 million. So that means 5 apiece. They would have to have given them a $1 million raise. It would have messed up maybe a 7th round pick. I don't get the compensatory pick excuse. The one thing that I always lean on is the fact that we are hearing about these misses and these lapse in judgments and the why what happened after the fact, the justifications after the fact. What I always love is Chris Grier and Mike McDaniel always have to tell Steve Ross their thought processes and their decision making during the process. Mm-hmm. So we know we might not be able to tell if it's a white lie or not, but Steve Ross is. And so he knew their initial thoughts about Skylar Thompson, about Mike White. So he knows where the bodies are buried. Now, the question is he going to do something about it? So I did also find it interesting that he mentioned that they could potentially use a draft pick on a quarterback. That's just not something that you just throw out there willy-nilly. That's something that you say to get the fan base excited. However, I will make the argument to you that I don't want this regime drafting a quarterback. And here's the reason why I don't want this regime drafting a quarterback. Because we all know they are on borrowed time. And whoever takes over when their time is up is going to feel like I need to draft a quarterback. And so I don't want to waste a pick on a player who isn't my quarterback. When you're talking about a coach and a GM, I didn't pick that guy. I've lived life with too many of those instances. Everybody should get an opportunity to pick their quarterback, and this one is Chris Grier's quarterback. And I don't think you should get the opportunity to pick another.
I think that justification makes sense, because at the end of the day, if we get another 8-9 season, these guys are probably gone. At the very least, Chris Grier is gone, and so I totally understand that. That makes a lot of sense. It's interesting though, because I've seen the Dolphins fans already getting their mock drafts in and all that stuff, and I've saw at least one quarterback picked. So it's curious.
That's all cute and well and good, but is it? Here's the thing about a quarterback, and this is why you need a veteran quarterback. A young quarterback, let's say you drafted Spencer Rattler last year, cannon arm, or Milton last year. When they get in the game, the speed of the game is going to go too fast. So let's say Tua goes down for 5 games. The speed of the game is going to be way too fast for them to even play at the speed that they need to. Look at Drake May. Like, he struggled all season. That's why they have the number, that's why they were in the running for the number 1 pick and screwed that up. It moves too fast. If something goes left with Tua, you need a veteran quarterback who can come in there and instantly add water and win games, a Matt Moore type. That's not going to be a young rookie. And the amount of snaps that Tua takes during the week to get himself ready with his accuracy, precision, timing, footwork, all the things that he does and does at a high level, he's much like Peyton Manning, where he monopolizes the majority of the practice snaps. I believe it was after the Cleveland game, Tyreek Hill said, I might get 2 passes from who was the backup? Or Tyler Snoop Huntley. I might get 2 passes a week from Tyler Snoop Huntley. Like, so if you're getting 2 passes a week from Tyler Snoop Huntley, how well do you think that a backup quarterback is going to be able to go out there and execute the offense when Tua is monopolizing 85 to 90% of the snaps? It's just unrealistic. So in my thought process, if we're on a backup quarterback, you're in the save jobs mode, and a rookie quarterback is not going to save your job.
No, I agree just with you're talking about with the need for a veteran quarterback, because, to the point you mentioned, veteran quarterbacks settle everything. They kind of settle. And just to have that calming presence, not just on the field, but in the locker room too, kind of similar to what like Calais Campbell brought, just people are just calmer around him just because of the level of preparation. At the end of the day, I think that's what you need as a backup quarterback. You just want someone that can come in and just have a calming presence. And I don't think, to your point, they necessarily had that, because when Skylar Thompson was in, he looked scared. So I was scared, he looked frightened against the Seahawks. And I'm sitting here thousands of miles away, like, good Lord. So I totally understand what you're saying, for sure.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that, because even on Twitter, somebody mentioned Matt Moore to me, and it's funny that I'm a big Matt Moore fan, as most Dolphin fans know. Mm-hmm. Matt Moore is a gunslinger. That's the style of quarterback that I wanted. Matt Moore was either going to give you a close loss or he was going to give you a blowout victory. That was how he played. But we had 2 coaches, Joe Philbin and Adam Gase, who had the opportunity to elevate Matt Moore in different seasons, and they decided, no, he's good as a backup, and primarily because Matt Moore doesn't do what's scripted, what the plays that are called. That was Adam Gase's main excuse why he had to bring in Jay Cutler and waste $13 million of Steve Ross's money to have a mediocre season. And then I remember the infamous, you probably don't know this, but there was an infamous wide receiver coup in the ending era of the Joe Philbin regime, where Mike Wallace, I'm not even going to throw Brian Hartline's name in there, even though I probably should, that Mike Wallace, Brandon Gibson, Jarvis Landry, and I believe Brian Hartline, they all went to Joe Philbin, and they told him in December that we as the receivers feel that we have a better chance of getting to the playoffs if Matt Moore replaces Ryan Tannehill. And that led to them basically being thrown out the office, and the coaches and basically the front office deciding to get rid of all the receivers the very next year, because once your receivers don't believe in the quarterback, you're toast. But the defense really put them up to it, and they were like, "Listen, y'all don't believe in him. We don't believe in him. Maybe if it come from y'all, these coaches will make a change." And lo and behold, it never happened. And everybody was shown the door. So this. I think that was the year. I think that was 2010, the year before Joe Philbin lasted, I believe, 4 games before he got whacked during the season. But that was that. I think back at these ending of different regimes, primarily Joe Philbin and Adam Gase. When they kept Joe Philbin, they kept him a year longer than they should have. And the players didn't buy in, didn't believe, and subsequently showed you the very next year, because they immediately quit on him. Team was eventually taken over by Dan Campbell and performed better. With Adam Gase.
Oh yeah, that was that. Okay, yeah. Okay. Now,
now you put it all together. Now with Adam Gase, they were in December. It was a Minnesota loss. They got blown out by Minnesota. Team didn't feel like they were prepared properly for that game. Adam Gase threw the players under the bus. The players like, "Oh yeah, really? You gonna throw us under the bus? Okay, well, we're done playing for you." And their efforts for the final remaining stretch of that season, including the final game in Buffalo, where literally just about everybody pulled themselves out the game in Tyreek-esque fashion. It was and then after the game, there was an indictment. We went into the locker rooms and we were like, "Do you want Adam Gase as your head coach?" Well, that decision is not up to me. I don't get paid. I don't get paid to make those kind of decisions.
Okay, so I want to ask you about that, because I've heard a few of that, in reference to this Dolphins regime. Is that 100% what that means? Like, I don't get paid to make those decisions. Is that automatically means like I want him gone? I just can't say it. Okay.
You got to read the body language.
Because I'm not gonna say no names, but the video that you sent me the other day, he said that, and so I was like, oh, okay.
Yes, but and I know exactly, and I'm not.
Yeah,
I want them strays.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, you can. If you're going to ask somebody if you feel that your boss can get the job done, you're generally going to say, "Yeah, my boss can get the job done. This is the reasons why I believe in him." Because didn't that person give you a great reason why Anthony Weaver could be a successful head coach? So sometimes you got to read between the lines.
Wow.
And so that's why the organization felt like Adam Gase could not or should not come back, because a lot of times when a team quits on a coach, and I'm not saying that this team has quit on Mike McDaniel. I honestly cannot tell you whether they have or they haven't. It has not gotten back to me yet whether they have or they haven't. But the roster is going to be remade anyway. They've got more free agents than they have players under contract. And that doesn't even include the people that they're going to shake down. So I'm curious to see how they're going to reassemble this roster. I'm curious to see how many people still buy in. This whole tardiness and fines and, I didn't buy into it as much as other people did. I think that was the low-hanging carrot. That was there. Mike McDaniel had just addressed the team saying these things. Locker rooms open to the media. They're parroting what Mike McDaniel did. And I think that that's an offering of, okay, I know I was too buddy-buddy with you guys, and we need to toughen up. But literally, there's nothing that a coach or an organization can do to make more people participate in voluntary workouts. There's nothing. And Tua showed up. He didn't participate. Why didn't he participate? Because of contract situation. There's going to be other guys who need their contracts adjusted. They're going to be players that you're going to try to shake down. the business is the business. And this is, so all of these excuses on why you're not a tougher team or why you struggle in the cold or, why you didn't respond to adversity. I'm sorry. That's not because people were late to the meetings and late. I don't buy any of that. I think that was a convenient excuse to offer up to the media, even though it makes Mike look bad, especially when a player is quitting on you in the middle of the game. And I don't really pay that much attention to that. And we'll talk about that a little bit in the when we're discussing Tyreek. But I think it was low-hanging fruit of something to offer to the media to say, I'm going to change. But ultimately, I don't believe a leopard can change its spots. Like, Mike is everybody's buddy. So now he's going to become a tough disciplinarian? Like,
there's just one point about that real quick and why that's not going to work. Because I'll never forget this. I remember when I was like going into my senior year, my dad had, given me some good advice about being, I was like being the head of the paper, right? And he's like, Isaiah, I know your personality. You're going to want to be everyone's friend. You're going to be amicable with everyone. That's not the way you should do it. You should be harder first and then get easier over time. Because people, when you do that, people are like, oh my God, he's really loosening up. You do it the other way, you just look crazy. And so I'm just wondering if that's the ship that we're about to see, like that the locker room will eventually quit because they're gonna think that this man is crazy. So I hopefully that's not what's happening. That like he's not going to be the disciplinarian now from day one, like because that's that's gonna be
not in him.
Okay.
It's and I'm not saying that it's about accountability. Okay, are players routinely late? Yes, maybe they were. Somebody should have been made an example of. Maybe that was David Long. I don't know. We don't know the inner workings of all of that was going on. But I don't think that was the main issue why they struggled as a team this year. I think the main issue, if I had to put a root at where the cancer was, it was because the offensive line didn't play well enough. Can't run the ball. Can't run the ball. Can't open up the deep passing game. Can't run the ball. Can't own time of possession. Can't run the ball. Defense is always on the field. And then we have to change our passing game to all these short little passing plays that are much like runs. Can't hold on to the ball too long because you got to protect the fragile quarterback. Build a better line, build a better trenches, and I think Mike and Chris will acknowledge that now. And maybe you have a better outcome. But let's get into the Tyreek Hill saga, as I like to call it. We all know where Tyreek is, and we all know who Tyreek is. Tyreek is let's see what Tyreek is. Talented player, internet troll, habitual liar, very emotional player. Okay? Those are things that we know that Tyreek is.
100%.
Now, the fact that he changed his Twitter handle to the Antonio Brown quitting, leaving the field, and with the head, with his head on it, that's Tyreek not taking what he did very seriously.
Yeah.
But it's Tyreek. Do you have a problem that Tyreek was made a team captain for this team?
Yes, 100%. And it's something that I've been talking about a little bit more recently as I've just engaged in conversation with people. Tyreek, obviously, everything you said is true. Tyreek is a great player. My only thing is that I believe that Tyreek will work best if he's not a culture setter, right? Like if he's not relied upon one of those guys to be like, this is going to be the culture of the team. Only because he plays too much. He literally plays too much. And if I'm going into battle with somebody, and if I'm going to war with somebody, not to say that I don't want someone to be lighthearted at times, I just think he plays literally too much. And I just think that that's just a terrible combination, considering the troll, considering the how emotional he is, because he's passionate. As Rosenhaus said yesterday, he's very passionate, and I think you can see that, right? But the thing is that when you combine passion with somebody that plays too much and is willing to be a troll, like that's when you get these recipes. Like when after the game, he's saying that he's gone. He doesn't want to be here anymore, right? Because he cares so much about the game. He cares so much about that final result, right? And as he should, for good measure. But at the same time, like at the back of his mind, like it's just like, but like I'm not gonna. What's gonna happen? Like where am I gonna be for the next couple of weeks? Who's gonna be talking about Tyreek in the next couple of weeks? Something that you mentioned, you know. And so I think like for Tyreek to be the best Tyreek, I just don't think that, you know, him being a not to say that he doesn't have leadership qualities, because I think he does. I'm sure he does. I think he plays way too much for me to be like for him to be relied upon as somebody that is a culture tone setter. Somebody like Zach Sealer to me is better for that, because he's someone that has gotten it out the mud, right, and has reached those levels, right? Think of a Calais Campbell, obviously. Like those are the guys to me that are, you know, I wouldn't mind building my culture, my culture around. That's just Tyreek. Because you never know what you're gonna get too, and unpredictability is also not a good job for a leader. It's just not. It's not a good quality, excuse me, for a leader. So that's
you know. And I try not to be too heavily critical of Tyreek, because I don't put him in the diva category. And I know diva receivers. I speak diva receiver. I get it. That is, you know, I get it. But he worked all year. Think about all year. Yes, he had maturity stuff. He'd do stupid things, but then he'd come out and he'd say the right things, even if it was a lie. Mm-hmm. There is an emotional instability there that I don't think is going anywhere. I think it's part of the reason why the Kansas City Chiefs got rid of him for a king's ransom, and the Dolphins are buyers. And when you bought, you knew exactly what you bought. Mm-hmm. And it's like that old saying, you go to bed with a snake, don't be surprised when you get bit. And here you are. And I'm not saying that Tyreek is a bad person. No. Or I'm not saying that he's a bad player. I'm not even saying that he's a bad leader, because there's a lot of times after tough losses, Tyreek was like, all right, y'all want to talk to me? Here, let me be the first. Come talk to me. Mm-hmm. And even the game where in Green Bay, where he basically went to Malik Washington and was like, listen, young boy, young cat, I have muffed 5 punts in my career, and see where I am now. Now, I'm pretty sure Tyreek was lying, because Tyreek is a habitual liar. He probably just made up that number. Mm-hmm. But for him to step up and be that leader in that moment that young player made, he's like, stand up, take accountability, own up to it, and make it better. And I was proud of Tyreek. There are moments where I have watched Tyreek this season, and he has tried to be more mature and tried to be a leader. Now, is it natural for him? No. Is he immature as hell? Absolutely. Everybody in the world knows Tyreek is immature. Mm-hmm. Like, let's be real about it. Mm-hmm. Now, what Rosenhaus said, which I found very interesting. One, I would like everybody to know that I've known Rosenhaus for more than 2 decades. Rosenhaus is not a liar. Rosenhaus isn't going to say something to defend his client that is not real, because it can come back and blow up in his face. Mm-hmm. So when Rosenhaus said that Tyreek was advised to shut it down for the season, have season-ending surgery on his wrist, I do believe him. Mm-hmm. You know, we have all known that Tyreek has been battling through this wrist injury that maybe he needed to have surgery on after the season. And I will go out on a limb and say that Houston game where he had the ball snatched from him, mm-hmm. maybe that some weakness in the wrist contributed to that, because the cornerback Stingley just basically snatched the ball from him. Now, look at it from Tyreek's standpoint. If I'm here playing through a wrist injury that might never heal, and my QB number 1 has a hip injury that y'all won't let him play with, and it's impacting us as a team and our performance and our chances, and he's telling me I can play, why am I a sacrificial lamb, but everybody else can't sacrifice themselves? And I'm not saying that that's the situation,
But I mean, that makes a lot of sense, though. I'm just thinking about that moment that I'm sure everyone saw by now when Waddle asked, Cheetah, you done? Like in the third quarter. Like I think that's valuable context that I think a lot of people are missing. And I understand, obviously, it's the quarterback. You got to be super protective of the quarterback. But even I think Tua, to some degree, is like, look, get me out of that. Like, I don't want to be coddled, basically. So I totally understand it. That's a good point.
And look at it. Understand from that situation, Tyreek. I forget how many yards he fell short of 1,000 for the 7th time in his career. He could have played those games. He could have played those snaps and got some meaningless yards and got to 1,000. And I'm pretty sure that my question on that was probably the tipping point where he was just like, "Damn, I didn't get to 1,000," and then the frustration kind of set in. He was
41 yards short. 41 yards short.
Yeah, I mean that's 2 catches for Tyreek. If you would have played the end of the third and end of the fourth, but he already knows the outcome of the game is done. It's decided. He's out there with Snoop Huntley. He doesn't feel like he's involved in the game plan at all. And he's like, you know what? Instead of going out there and understand every time you're on the field, you're risking injury. He was already sick early in the week. I'm not making excuses for him. He was listed on the injury report as ill. We can, like, frustration, anger, injury, illness. He was just like, I'm done. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm pretty sure Dolphin fans can't digest that because they're like, oh, you should play every minute of every game, even if it doesn't matter.
That's because football fans don't realize these guys are human. Like they put on their pants one leg at the same time. They might be Amiris, they might be Chrome Hearts, they might be even some Supreme pants. But like they are human at the end of the day. I just think that often gets lost in professional sports. Like these are real emotions. All those things that you just said, that's what makes your point so compelling. That like these are very real things that happen to individuals. It's just that they have a job that is viewed by millions of people on a daily basis. It's incredible. Go ahead. My bad.
Yeah, no. So I don't know. Do I think a lot of what's being said about Tyreek right now is posturing? Absolutely, because the team can't make it seem like we're having a Tyreek Hill fire sale. Tyreek Hill is not happy. He's not pleased, and he doesn't want it. He doesn't want the organization to think that he's pleased. And he's not the only player who feels like that. Mm-hmm. He just has the most power because he makes 6 times what the coach and the GM makes. This is the reality of the game that we play. The question is, are you going to fix it? Are you going to make us a contender? That's the way Tyreek is looking at it. Mm-hmm. Are we going to be contending, or are you going to have me here for this bull? Mm-hmm. And if we here for the bull, then get me up out of here. And I don't think anything has changed in that tune. Like we either doing this and we running it back, but if we rebuilding, I want out. Mm-hmm. So, I think that's a saga that's going to continue to carry on. I think the lesson learned is don't give everybody their money when they're asking for it, and see how things shake out at the end of the season. Let's get into the Anthony Weaver segment of this show, which is the Dolphins defensive coordinator, who's only been here for 1 year, is a candidate for the New Orleans Saints job, is a candidate for the Chicago Bears job. I believe he's interviewed already for the Saints job. I will make the argument to you that neither of those jobs are jobs that I want. And I will also make the argument to you that as a black man, he is a candidate for the bad jobs in the NFL, which is just the reality of the situation.
I'm going to disagree with you. I know a lot of people have their own opinions towards it. I don't think the Bears job is that bad, considering I feel like the bar is a lot lower than people think, because they have a quarterback. They have a good receiving core. Like, obviously you need improvements on the offensive line. The defense isn't bad. Like, you have some good pieces over there, Jalen Johnson specifically. I think personally, that's what I'm saying. I just think that isn't as bad of a job as people think. Whereas the Saints, you mentioned earlier that like their owner is what is it, millionaire poor, right? So she doesn't really got a lot of money to pump in the organization. They don't have a quarterback. Chris Olave, who to me is probably one of the brightest spots. Like he has just concussions. It's year after year, it's concussions, and so I'm worried about his safety at this point, right? He's obviously an elite player.
They got a quarterback.
Who?
Don't be disrespectful.
Who?
Carr.
Derek Carr? Oh my God!
Derek Carr is like a top quarterback.
Are we in 2020? What is this? Is this 2025? We're in 2025, and we're still saying that Derek Carr is a viable option at quarterback. Come on, bro.
Is Derek Carr better than Drake May? Okay,
maybe marginally, but like
Derek Carr better than Caleb Williams.
Who?
Caleb Williams.
I don't think he played better than Caleb Williams. No, he didn't. Not this year. We can pull up the numbers too.
He was hurt. Listen. He was hurt. Look, we can say here's the thing. One, I do want to address the fact that you did the research and you found out that the Dolphins, even if somebody hired Anthony Weaver, the Dolphins wouldn't get compensatory picks for it. Explain that situation to the people.
Yeah, so there's two things at play here, right? You get, I think it was in 2020, the NFL said that, like, look, if you develop minority talent, right, we'll give you a compensatory pick, right? The only thing is you got to stay 2 years, right? And I think it's the same thing where the same thing if he wasn't a minority too. Like, it's 2 years, you can get a compensatory pick. But because obviously he's a black man, he hasn't been there more than a year, they're not going to get a compensatory pick. So essentially, if he walks, they get nothing back for a guy that built a top 10 defense. And that to me is a horrific possibility. I tweeted that as such, just because it's just, that was probably the only bright spot for the season. Finding out Devon Achane can catch the ball was cool, but and Jonnu Smith having the most productive season and from a tight end in Parental's history, again, that was great as well, right? But I think that as a unit, the defense played very well all year, right? And to have that guy just now gone, considering from one of the very first things players were saying about him was that he is building a culture here, right? And I just don't think you want to have those quote unquote culture guys just walk out the door for nothing. And so while I saw him last night, right, and I'm just gonna give this quick aside. I saw him last night at the Orange Bowl. He's there with his family. Notre Dame out, very very excited to be there. Saw him, gave him a handshake, talked to him for a second or two, but then left him with the hey, don't leave, please. And Dolphins fans, don't worry, I got you. I did my pleading for y'all, because aside from the fact that the product on the field, he's a great guy, right? I think if we could have voted for the best media person from a coach perspective, and I guess we could have, right? I guess we could have given the good guy award to a coach, but I would have voted for him because he's just always great answers. He's always very amicable, and you can tell the guys really really like him. So
yeah, and very confident. But hey, if you get an offer, even if it's a bad job, you got to take it. Because it's one of 32.
I don't think so. I think Saban just talked about this. You shouldn't take a bad NFL job, because that's what he did when he came down here. He took a bad NFL job. They were terribly over the cap. What happened? He said they didn't have a quarterback.
Hey, they had no money. I bet you it wouldn't have been a bad NFL job if he would have picked Drew Brees over Dante Culpepper.
Look.
That Saban began having selective memory. If he stopped drafting all the SEC players and actually put together some good drafts, maybe you would have been in a better situation. Saban ran out of here because he wasn't treated like God. That's the problem. And he was never going to be treated like God. He went to Alabama, who treated him like God, and he built that because he paid the players behind when it wasn't allowed to pay the players, and now when it's allowed to pay the players and it's a bidding war, he out. He don't want to compete no more. And players can transfer because you talking to them foul, and you think you ain't the only coach that can get me to the NFL. I'm Audi 5000. That's what Saban left for, because Saban couldn't handle it.
That's fair.
Yeah. And realistically, unfortunately, people don't realize that, but a lot of that NIL mentality is coming to the NFL. Oh, I ain't happy here? Trade me, cut me, release me. I go somewhere else to get the money. So, and that's why coaches like Mike McDaniel getting jobs, because they're about that player empowerment. Unfortunately, sometimes that player empowerment blows up in your face. So we shall see. On that note, we will be back next week with more Dolphins in Depth, and looking forward to continuing this autopsy of this Dolphins' wonderful 8-9 season.